Hello, I'm James Preston for Kalkine Media and welcome to another edition of Executive Corner Expert Talks. In this edition, I'll be shining a light on mineral exploration company Mount Burgess Mining. And the best way to do that is to sit down with CEO at Mount Burgess Mining, Nigel Forrester. Nigel, thanks for joining me today.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for taking this on.
Well, Nigel, first and foremost, what is the focus of Mount Burgess Mining?
Well, right now, and it has been for some while, and it will be again for a while for the future, is that we've got this base metal or polymetallic project in Botswana. It's a SEDEX type deposit, and as I say, it's polymetallic, so it contains zinc, lead, silver, vanadium, which we can get the vanadium pentoxide from. And also, we've now recently been working on the gallium and the germanium content of the project too. So it's a polymetallic project, and we've got two main deposits at the moment, and it's got the potential for developing several other deposits. But the main two are the Kihabe deposit and the Nxuu deposit, which are 7 kilometers apart. But we're going to be initially developing the Nxuu deposit because it is such a very low risk, shallow basin shaped deposit where the average depth of the basin mineralization is only about 45 meters. And the other thing about it is that it's a totally oxidized deposit. The mineralization occurs in a quartz wacky, which is totally oxidized, and being totally oxidized, it makes it much easier to be able to extract the metals and produce them on site. So basically, this is what have been concentrating on. And now that we're looking at more than just zinc and lead, we're going to need to do further test work to show that we can recover the gallium, the germanium, and also we know we can recover vanadium pentoxide. We've done that test work. But what we've got to do is enable to be able to get all of them out, because they all take different processes of extraction. We need to make sure on a bulk metallurgical scale that we don't, by getting one out, for instance, we don't deteriorate the process for getting another one out. So that's really going to be the further metallurgical test work that we've got to do on this to ensure that we can produce these metals on site.
And that Botswana project, is that the Kihabe-Nxuu Project? I hope I'm saying that correctly as well. Yeah,
well, you've got to go no to click no with your tongue on the roof of your mouth. No. Okay? That means basin in the sound language. That means basin. This is the Kihabe-Nxuu Project. Yeah.
And outside of the obviously the shallow drilling there, which is giving you the potential for some really good results, what other updates can you provide about the project?
Well, one of the things that has been an issue so far as the project is concerned, supply of a power supply. And so, as you saw recently, we made an announcement where we could be doing a deal with Botswana Energy, which has got a coal bed methane gas project in Botswana. And because the both of us are there, we've signed an MOU to try and work together in the event that we cannot rely on grid power, that we can then look at them on their coal bed methane gas project, where they're looking at probably they are looking at converting it to LNG, and if they do that, then we can then look at potential solar LNG hybrid power supply.
And how many specifics of that deal can you go into at this point in time?
Nothing really, other than just saying that we've agreed that we will work together. Because we haven't yet done a feasibility study on the project. We know that we're probably going to need roughly between 15 megawatts of power for the project, around about 15 megawatts of power. But at this point in time, we haven't sort of done any deal on, a supply amount or a supply price or anything like that. We're just basically, and so far as Batala is concerned, it has yet to still develop their CBM project into production. But I mean, they're pretty well advanced, and they've got to do a little bit more drilling, which they're planning to do this year. But once that's completed, they should then themselves be able to get into a feasibility study. So really, nothing specific at this stage. Just an agreement to try and work together for the benefit of both parties.
Well, Nigel, you mentioned their feasibility studies. What are the plans to progress the delivery of an indicated measured resource compliant with the 2012 JORC code and a pre-feasibility study? Is that well advanced at this point?
Well, we've got to do about another 1,500 meters of drilling. We've just done some drilling so far, but we've got about another 1,500 meters to do at the Ngamiland deposit. And once we've done that, we should then be able to quote a resource, indicated measured resource, compliant with the 2012 JORC code. And once we've got that, we've then got to do, as I mentioned earlier, the overall metallurgical test work to make sure that we can recover all of those metals without losing, some of what. For instance, we know right now we know that we can produce 93% of zinc on site. We know that we can produce 84% of vanadium pentoxide on site. We know that we can produce around 85% of silver on site. We believe that we should be able to recover both gallium and germanium because they're in a form of mica, and the fact that they're in a form of mica makes it a lot easier to be able to float that off, and then you can recover it. But in doing all of these different recovery processes, for instance, will our 93% zinc recovery deteriorate down to whatever? And will the silver recovery deteriorate? So we've got to make sure on a bulk test that we can keep all of those sorts of percentages in place by knowing that we can recover all of those metals in virtually the same process.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned several times throughout our chat so far the likes of vanadium, gallium, germanium, copper as well. With the various findings that you've been undertaking so far, how much potential have you uncovered that you could really get something moving with those specific metals with the company?
Well, we should be able to, and once we've got the whole power situation sorted out, then yes, definitely we should be able to, because as I say, it's a very, very shallow basin-shaped deposit, and it's a very low-risk deposit. I'm not allowed to mention stripping ratios yet because it's not a 2012 JORC code, but if people look at the numbers on some of the announcements that we've put out, they can get a pretty good idea that it's going to be a very, very low strip ratio. So it will work. It's as simple as that. It will work. And power is we've got to have power for the project. That's been the main stalling point so far.
Well, let's say this power does come in, Nigel. What are some of the processes that you can apply to ensure that you're going to get the most out of this project?
Well, we know that we basically we know that we can, as I say, we know we can recover 93% of zinc on site. And we know that we can recover vanadium pentoxide on site. It may be when we do this bulk test work that we're going to have to see which process we apply first, and then there'll be a second process and probably a third process down the line. But this is something that we've still got to do the test work for. That metallurgical test work has still got to be done. So what we're doing right now is that just for this last lot of drilling that we've done, we're waiting for those results, which should start coming in about 3 weeks' time. And once we've got those results from this last round of drilling that we've done, that will enable us to then identify what particular, from the assays we get, what particular part of the deposits we can then, the deposit we can then test from a metallurgical point of view. We've used HQ core for this drilling, so that we've got wide core that we can use. We cut in half, but half of it goes for assaying, and the other half we can use for metallurgical test work. But we need to know where we're getting the actual mineralization in the deposit, which we can then use. We can use that part of the deposit or over various parts of the deposit to do that metallurgical test work. We know where we're getting good zinc values. We know where we're getting good vanadium pentoxide values. So once we've got those results, we can then get that core, the last half of the HQ core, over here to Australia, and we can start on that test work.
Well, Nigel, it's been really fascinating getting all the updates here. Just before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience and potential and current investors?
Well, look, we've got a project, and yes, there's been delays. COVID isn't helping, but we're lucky that we've got a very capable team in Botswana. They had very severe restrictions, but they've now loosened those up a lot, and particularly so far as the mining industry is concerned, because the company is virtually reliant on mining. So there's been a fair amount of relaxation from their very strict measures that they first introduced. But as I say, we've got a very, very capable team that we can rely on over there. And up until now, I have not been allowed to go to Botswana. But the question is, should I still be going? But knowing that we've got a very capable team, we are now managing. Now that Botswana has relaxed their restrictions, we are managing to move forward with this project. But yes, there have been delays, and where haven't there been delays because of COVID? But we're getting on with the job. It's as simple as that.
Well, Nigel, hopefully it's all smooth sailing from here, and I'll certainly be keeping my fingers crossed for the best possible results coming out of Botswana. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for allowing me to give you the presentation. Stay safe.
Well, that's Nigel Forrester, the CEO at Mount Burgess Mining. And if you missed any part of that chat, you can catch the full interview on our YouTube channel, Kalkine Media. So make sure to subscribe. I'm James Preston, reminding you to stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.